Soulwind TV presents.
Soulwind TV presents. You're listening to the Mamahood Tales, where we just get to talk and hang out and laugh and just connect and see what God has to say and the Bible has to say about being a mom, because being a mom is kingdom work. I want this to be just basically you having coffee with your best friend and us laughing and talking and relating, because we're raising kingdom kids and man, the world is rough out there. So grab a cup of coffee, a glass of water, whatever, and let's chat. Hey Mama, Allie here, your host for the Mamahood Tales. So in today's episode, we're going to dive on into some stuff, and I'm excited. I'm very excited. So one, we're going to talk about picking the right providers, and I'm not just talking about like for you, but for you, for your family, picking your support, different things like that, because I feel like sometimes we just kind of choose on a whim and we're not really sure, and it's really hard to make those choices. But I'm also going to talk about my journey in pregnancy of picking certain providers, and then also choosing a home birth this time. So I'm excited to dive on in and just kind of chit chat about all of that fun stuff. So grab a cup of coffee, because of course it's what I'm going to say, or maybe water, or maybe juice if that's the mood for the day. My last pregnancy, I was like obsessed with juice. I was obsessed with anything that had like a real noticeable difference in taste, because during pregnancy, for whatever reason, everything tastes bland, and I think my daughter's taste buds have definitely caught on with that, because she loves fruit, and so fun. So anyways, choosing the right providers. So I feel like it is so hard in today's world to pick providers. And I feel that we're in this weird shift of time when it comes to the information that we have at our fingertips, the things that we have learned and seen and discovered and are still learning, seeing, and discovering from all the past years. But I also feel like people are starting to really take charge of their health and really looking at things, and I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I really do, because I'm always on the side of buyer beware. I'm grateful that we have wonderful options out there, but just like we have 50 million different types of ice cream and ice cream flavors and bread types, and none of those guys are hurting, it's because we all have different types of people out there that want, need, and desire different types of things. So I think it is wonderful that, we can have that, but also, buyer beware, do your due diligence, right? So picking the right providers, man, I don't know what it is, but I always used to get so anxious and nervous about picking providers, and I feel like it's just kind of changed this past year. So with previous times, like when I tell you anxious or nervous, like I'm literally reading every review possible on doctors, things like that, and seeing what their patients and clients are saying about them. And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, going the extra mile and stalking their Facebook. I know that sounds insane, but like specifically some doctors out there, like they are on social media these days, and you kind of get a feel for their personality and who they are and things like that. But then also going the extra mile and checking their social media. I know that sounds crazy, and I really hope I'm not alone, because that would just make me feel even crazier. But with my PCP back in Texas, She was amazing, and it just was kind of like, of course I'm going to go to her because she's a pastor's wife and I'm getting kind of close with their family and I think they're wonderful. But with my lady doctor, come time of me back then needing birth control, I was very much like stalking social media and Facebook and literally everything. And that changed. And I think it just changed due to just trying hard to listen to the Lord and be at peace, and also just realize, like, I know how to advocate for myself and I know how to say no and I know how to make myself be known. I was really fortunate before I moved to Texas, had a really decent PCP. And when you move, it of course is just like everything changes, right? Like you have to get a new dog sitter. You have to get a new hairstylist. Oh my goodness. I am trying so hard to find a new hairstylist. I was a hairstylist. I am still licensed to do hair and love hair. But I am just so nervous about finding a hairstylist. So just literally crazy things, right? But yeah. So it's so hard when you move and you get so well acquainted with somebody and you just feel so comfortable with them, and then you need to find someone all over again. And man, I'm grateful for the reviews that are out there of people, and I'm grateful for social media being a tool. And of course, portals where you can like look up and see who works with your insurance if you have that, different things like that. But now I will say I'm so grateful for all these different moms pages and all these other pages that are out on social media, because there are so many of them, and there are some that are not great, right? Of course, but there are some that are so, so helpful. So I live in the greater Charlotte area of North Carolina, and I am a crunchy mama. I mean, I just told you I'm having a home birth for my second baby, so you might be able to make some assumptions there, but I am a crunchy mama, and there's these crunchy Christian mama pages on Facebook for the area. So look and see if there's any in your area. Or maybe you're a silky mama, or maybe you're a scrunchy mama. Well, there's probably pages for you too. But it is wonderful to have these communities, and they just come and just, you need an answer and they got you. You need recommendations, they got you. So a little note there, and a great resource when it comes to picking providers. But back to the meat and potatoes of it. So when I was in my first pregnancy, we knew that we were moving from Texas to North Carolina, and that whatever provider I would have, I would not deliver with them. I would not have my daughter with them. And so I literally went on my insurance portal, and I knew that I did not want an OBGYN and that I wanted a midwife. And I had a very modern midwife. And what I mean by that is, pretty much like she's a certified nurse midwife, not a certified professional midwife. There's a difference there. And what I mean by a very modern midwife is she does inductions with Pitocin and things like that. Like a lot of the things that an OBGYN would do besides a cesarean birth, C-section birth, she did all of those things pretty much. I can't speak for sure because I don't know her scope of licensure. Don't want to give you misinformation, blah, blah, blah. But she was a very modern midwife. And I picked her because I just was like, oh, wow, like it's no big deal. And, I'm not going to deliver. I just kind of want a midwife care in general. She was the only person with my insurance that was a midwife in that area. And I just, I liked some of the things that people were saying about her. And so when I went in and I talked to her for my first appointment, I said, I specifically picked you because of the reviews that you had. People were saying that you sat down and took time to listen and talk to people and things like that. And that is really important to me because your first pregnancy, I feel like you have, goodness, so many questions every single appointment. And then halfway through you have more, and then at the end you have more. Now that I'm on my second pregnancy, my provider is like, so any questions? And I'm like, no, not really. And it's just absolutely hilarious to see the day and night difference between the two. But yeah, so that was how I picked my first one. And then fast forward to, having to pick other providers because moved out here and I had to pick, where I had my daughter, a birth center. And then I had to pick a pediatrician for my daughter. And then I also had to pick, a PCP for me and even a chiropractor for our family as well, too. And so recommendations are fantastic. For my daughter's pediatrician, I just asked the birth center. I said, this is what I would like for our family. This is how we operate, and I'm looking for a great fit. And they gave me recommendations. And of course, they're going to have those connections and relationships built already because they're in the business of delivering babies and helping pregnant women. And, I don't know what pediatrician wouldn't want to make good friends with them. That way they can kind of have a good referral basis between the two, right? So that was fantastic. And my daughter's pediatrician, she is actually on Dr. Green Mom's list. So if you are a crunchy mama and you are looking for doctors that are cupcake friendly or alligator bite friendly, if you catch my drift, Dr. Green Mom has a fantastic page full of different providers that you can look at, and they're for literally all the states. So that is another fantastic resource. But guys, it is so hard and so scary to pick providers out there in today's world. I feel like, especially as a Christian parent with the climate of the world, it is so hard. It is so hard and sometimes really scary. But anyways, so, and with my chiropractor that we were seeing, we're moving to a different town, so I'm probably going to change that. But I literally just was like talking to the birth center, and they're like, oh, well, a lot of us go to these people. And where I was like, great, let's go to these people then. And I was super, super grateful for that recommendation again. And, when you kind of find your community and your tribe, you can kind of trust the resources and the referrals that people are tossing around, and those recommendations and names. Like, it makes life a lot easier when you kind of have that little tribe of people. So now, as far as deciding on the birth center, and deciding on my doula for my last pregnancy and this pregnancy again, I just kept doing research and research and research and research. I'm going to tell you, birth where you feel safe. But I just did so much research, decided I wanted a birth center birth. My husband was like, once he did his research, was like, absolutely. And we couldn't be more happy with our choice there. And I looked at all the reviews, and I went and I talked to the people, and I got to meet the team and just little things like that, and was like, this is amazing. And then every appointment that I went to, like, it was a good, enjoyable experience. And I was just so grateful to follow the Lord's lead into that, and just to have his reassurance and guidance. And sometimes it's so frustrating because we always expect God to speak to us in certain ways, and sometimes he speaks to us in the least expected way. And a lot of times I feel like for me, that least expected way is the peace that I have in my spirit about a decision. And sometimes you just know when you know. So that's how it was for picking my doula. We did not realize that a doula was something that we wanted to have with our first daughter, because when I say that, where I had her, like, they truly care, they truly listen, they don't do any shady stuff. I mean it. And I just didn't feel that I needed to have a doula being there because of how respectful they were of me and my choices. And then we were doing our birthing class, and my husband heard about a doula, and he was like, wait, what is this? He's like, I think I need one for myself. And so He's great. And we picked one, and let me tell you, I am grateful that we had one because I would have had an accidental home birth if I didn't have one. And that would not have been fun or good, not being prepared for that situation. And so, um, we interviewed so many people. Like, it was like, bam, 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 bam. I literally put out on a couple of different resource pages on social media, those groups that I was telling you guys about, that I was looking for a doula. I got a bunch of requests, quickly looked through the information, started praying on it, did some interviews, and then I also did one on like Milo or something, some website like that, put out a request on that, got a bunch of information, and had some of the most amazing conversations with these women. Just so great. But I tell you, like, when I talked to my doula, the person that I decided on the first for our daughter, I halfway through the conversation was like, this person is perfect. This is who I want. And I told my husband, and she literally was perfect. And so it was a lot of fun when I got to call her and was like, hey, I need a doula again. And she was like, oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm like, nope. And of course, you know, that's great. But we talk about non-pregnancy related stuff, and she's just becoming a great friend, and she's just so kind. So, you know, you really have to lean in and trust the Lord's guidance, because he will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding, and that, like, you know, when you know feeling. And that truly was that way for you know, our doula, but also my provider for a home birth as well too. And so yeah, let's talk about the whole home birth thing, because that's fun. Why did I decide to do that? Well, lots of reasons. One, I highly, 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 highly recommend going and watching the documentary, The Business of Being Born. It is a fantastic documentary. I cannot recommend it enough. And I'm going to also just tell you, birth where you feel safe. I felt very safe at the birth center. Love the birth center. Would go back there in a heartbeat. And I'm kind of sad I'm not doing the birth center again, just because I had such a wonderful experience. But I wanted more traditional midwifery care. And I also, just being still so new to the area, and having precipitous labor with my first daughter, and having the births so close together, just felt that this was the safest option, because my husband did miss the birth of our first child. He works for a major U.S. airline, and he missed it. So that being said, you know, with having precipitous labor and being at home laboring alone, my husband missing the birth of the first child, like not getting there until a couple hours after she was born, and having at that time will be a 1-year-old, it just felt like a really good option with all of those things to do that. And I just wanted that peaceful, not that I didn't have a peaceful experience, I don't know, it just felt so right. Now, I cannot emphasize enough, birth where you feel safest. If you feel safe in a hospital, then that's great, mama. I think you should do that, and I totally support you. If you feel safe at a birth center, that's amazing. I love that for you, and I support you. If you feel safe at home, that's wonderful for you, and I love that for you. Making sure that you feel safe is so important, because if you don't feel safe, fear is going to creep in. And if you are fearful, then your contractions may hurt more, and then your labor may stall, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this, right? Like, it's, yes, feel safe. This is your experience. Bringing children into this world is such a sacred, holy moment. Do not let anybody take that away from you, and you advocate for yourself until the cows come home. Okay, now that I'm off my soapbox. Anyways, so decided to do that. And even the midwife that delivered my daughter, she said, yeah, no, you'd be a real good candidate for this. And I said, okay. So I started looking around and I talked to my doula. You know, of course, she works in that industry, so she's got lots of great connections. And let me tell you, word of mouth and these groups and whatnot, they are fantastic. Now, I will say that do your research on home birth for the state as well too, because there is some interesting stuff state by state and what they do as far as like what the state deems as illegal and whatnot. And I'm not telling anybody to do anything illegal. I'm just saying, you know, do your due diligence, okay? Because that is so important. Do your due diligence, research. There are so many fantastic books out there, so much information out there. Now, I will say research is such a double-edged sword, and I've just come to accept this, and I've had this conversation a lot with friends and family. We are in a time where whatever opinion you want to think, whatever side you want to see, you can find research to fit it. You can find research to fit the narrative and the so-called facts, so-called opinions that you choose to believe for any side. And I mean for any side. And we can look at this deeper than just being a mom and health and wellness and things like that. We can look at this for church as well, because every denomination feels that they are right and they all have research to back that they are right. So that is just the time that we are in today's world. But yeah. Okay, so I do feel like this episode is getting a bit long. Obviously, I'm very passionate about this topic, but we're going to pick this up at another time. And trust me, I will totally be continuing to take you all on this journey of this second pregnancy and having a home birth and all the fun things, mediocre things, and probably not fun things that are going to come up along with it. So stay tuned.
Are you feeling broken or lost? Are you struggling to find a community of like-minded women? Come join us on Soulwin, Shining Our Light Women's Inspiration Network. Soulwin women have come out victoriously from their dark places and now use their God-given gifts to shine their light to the whole world. Get your free 30-day trial today. Go to www.soulwin.tv to subscribe now.